The inflows in global equity is of such volume that it deprives other markets so poorly we risk a continued historic high in volatility. There's an issue in play, a very specific issue, an issue related to common sense. Um, there's a very high degree of influence in equity, and it is by a big odds thy neighbor, somebody is losing out. There is too much inflow in a very short notice. That means asset prices, uh, given the size of the inflows, are at risk of collapsing. In asset prices, equity, currency, and government debt attributable for 75% of subsequent volatility, says Morgan Stanley. That means the volatility risk originating out of yesterday's volatility into equity. The risk is spread out over equity, again, currency, and government debt. That means these three pillars, counterintuitive, equity being deprived over other equity, is a very interesting topic. The inflows in equity carry extreme risk of volatility. The effects will be predominantly felt in all global liquidity, money flow, and volatility in global equity. So what comes into play is liquidity issues. The liquidity flowing out of, for example, government debt into equity, such in such an aggressive way, liquidity issues, money flow issues, and again volatility issues subsequent to the initial volatility we saw yesterday, especially in U.S. equity. We look at Nasdaq inflow volume. $770 billion yesterday was rotated into Apple and Nvidia alone. You can make the assessment $770 billion spread out of two stocks. That means global rotation we saw rises. Also in the European markets, the global rotation is a very, very sizable number. You can estimate that the size is entering into systemic territory, specifically based on Apple and Nvidia. Morgan Stanley signaled the risk today if it goes, for example, out of government debt, something which is known. You can have an aggressive peak in yields. So all subsequent issues, something which is inherent to the playing field. So Goldman Sachs wants to indicate the volatility is of such historic nature that it's a global systemic stability issue.